And so you talk about the length of your deployments and, you know, sailors handing in discharge forms. They wanted to leave because, they, you know, nuclear submarines takes that to another level again, doesn't it? In terms of the time away. And how easy do you think it's going to be to get that workforce?
Yeah. So interestingly, the point where I talk about the discharges coming in the book is a point where we'd spent a long, long time ashore. That's right. And it was as we were getting back to sea that the sailors were saying, OK, I don't want to get out of the Navy anymore. This is what I want to do. I want to stay in. Yes. So, you know, as long as industry can generate safe and capable and reliable submarines to put to sea, the submariners will join. And if they're doing worthwhile work at sea, that's what will keep them in and keep them coming back. And I think another key part of it is you need a strong workforce because it's a tough life. No one can do it continuously. You know, you're best off if you're at sea in a crewed submarine for a couple of years and then, you know, maybe a year ashore working in the schoolhouse or something like that and then back to sea. If you're being asked to do, you know, deployment after deployment after deployment because you don't have a strong enough submarine workforce, that's what will wear people down and that's what will, you know, send people out of the service as much as, you know, so it's either too little sea time or too much sea time. Yeah, it's a balance. It's a balance. It's a balance. What hooks you in? What makes you want to go on the next submarine mission once you've done it for a few months? Yeah, so I put this down to three things. And the first is the purpose. And you know when you're out there that you're serving a purpose. You know, you're serving your nation, you're presenting, you know, submarines, being no doubt, Andrew, are offensive weapon systems. They're designed to sink ships and other submarines. And when they are at sea, presenting that capability, they also have the effect of deterring people from acting against us. So you know you're having an effect every time you're at sea. The second is the challenge. And whether that's the challenge of knowing your submarine or the challenge of, you know, working for weeks on end, whatever the challenge might be, you know, people who seek challenge will find it in boats. And the third is the people that you share that with, the people that share that purpose, the people that are willing to go through those challenges with you. And that combination just always brought me back. And you welcome the AUKUS announcement in this book. I guess you more than anyone can see the importance of this acquisition. Can you explain it to us? Yeah. I've long been of the view that our geographic circumstances demand a nuclear submarine capability. You know, it's not just the expanse of the coastline, the expanse of the Indo-Pacific area that we cover, and the distance to those sort of strategically important waters where our boats might have to operate. But nuclear submarines, because of the sustained, you know, the endless power and the sustained speed, they really do offer governments a great deal more flexibility on where, how and when they might deploy their submarines. And of course, you know, we're not going from it's not a clean transition from a Collins to a Virginia, from a conventionally powered submarine to a nuclear powered submarine. We're actually going to have both for quite some time. So we're really moving to a situation of a multi-class and a multi-type submarine fleet, which again will have its own advantages. And you ended up spending time in Iraq and Afghanistan. Take us through that. How did that occur? I did. So that occurred because I was still in the Navy. I was a senior naval officer, and you can't be at submarines all your life. And there was a need over there. So the job I did there, I was the Chief of Staff in the national headquarters in Baghdad. So at that time, that was 2006, 2007. It was a pretty grim time. Pretty hairy time. Yeah, in Iraq. The insurgency was just totally out of control. It was in fact, as the Americans brought in what they called the surge, with an extra sort of 30 or 40,000 troops onto the ground to regain control there. So I was effectively running the headquarters for the commander, running the task force. We had 10 task groups in the Middle East at that stage, across Iraq, the Gulf and Afghanistan, all doing very specialist roles, all tremendously talented servicemen and women, about 2,000 of them at the time, contributing each in their own way. So it was a professionally very rewarding experience, personally quite dismaying experience.
Yeah, and I guess you speak about anxiety, PTSD you got from your service. I guess that was no small part of it, that experience.
Yeah, a couple of incidents there that frightened me on the day, and so at certain times I built up some trauma, and at certain times through my career and immediately after I left the Navy, I sought professional help in the form of counselling for alcoholism and psychologist support for anxiety, depression and so on. And I think without that support at the right time, things might have turned a little differently. But with that support, you find a way to move on and move through.
Now, the Defence Strategic Review, it's being billed by the government as our biggest change in defence policy since World War II. Does seem a big call.
Yep.
But do you see it that way? What do you think of the review?
So what gets written in a review like that, what gets written in a white paper is really important. But in my view, Andrew, what matters most is what follows after that. It's the action that follows the review. And I think, the review of itself, I don't have any particular criticism of it. What I always look for is, okay, what's the action on the ground that's going to result from this review? And perhaps I've been stung before. There's been no shortage of announcements on submarine capability over the last 20 years. They haven't actually turned into new submarines for the Navy. It's one of the reasons why I do have a great deal of confidence in the AUKUS announcement. 18 months ago the announcement was made. They gave themselves time to come up with a pathway. They've done that. It's clear, it's sensible, it's progressive, it meets the strategic need, but it does it with the right urgency. So that's an area where I can see action coming and hitting the ground pretty well.
Commodore Peter Scott, thank you so much for your time.
Andrew, not at all. Thank you.